Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families. Good evening, listeners. Welcome to the Writers' Room. As you know, at ABL, our mission is not only about celebrating and sharing fabulous Australian and Indigenous authored books of all genres with readers around the globe, it's about finding fantastic resources and information for authors looking to write their own book or two or three. What better resource than getting into this writer's room with some of those authors and asking them to share their experience? We are in episode 148. I'm Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, author of memoir, picture book, science fiction and fantasy, and here on Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country in very chilly southeastern Australia with my co-host.
Yes, I'm Laurie Bell, science fiction and fantasy author, blogger, reviewer, Friday fictioneer, flash fiction writer, and all sorts of in between writing and waffling. I think
Waffling, yeah, move on.
feels like a lot of waffling these days.
I'm just glad you got your voice back, Laurie, because I know you have been well. So thank you for being here tonight.
That's right, and I'm also speaking to you today from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country.
Excellent. Now, our listeners tell us that they'd love to hear what inspires the story in our writers, how does it make it to the page and what happens. So tonight we're diving into the writing worlds of prize-winning YA authors, Miranda Luby and Holly Cardamone. Cardamone, is that correct, Holly?
Cardamone, perfect.
Cardamone, excellent. Okay. Now, I realise, in fact, I've opened the draft. And Laurie, what does it say after that? Two writers who...
Oh, that's all I've got on mine too.
Oh, man. Two writers who, and I had a really nice lyrical opening, which was about who write about real world emotions, events, relationships through a YA filter. Would that be fair?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. So let me introduce, first of all, Miranda Luby. Hello, Miranda.
Hello.
Where are you tonight?
I am in Wurundjeri country in Victoria.
It's a beautiful country down there. And Holly, where are you tonight?
Tonight, I'm in Woiwurrung country.
Fantastic. So it covers a fair distance and we are probably very far apart, but yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world. And all Victorians, let's just say that is a wonderful thing. All right. As our listeners know, we like to introduce the authors with a little bit of a bio and share the blurb of their book so that they know where we are up to and who we're talking about. So let me get out the little blurb here that I have, and I am going to share with you all about Miranda. So Miranda is an author, journalist, copywriter and animal lover living on Victoria's surf coast. She's won several awards for her short stories and her journalism features in publications such as National Geographic, BBC Travel and the New York Post. Miranda was shortlisted for the Text Prize for her debut novel Sadie Starr's Guide to Starting Over. And here is the blurb for The Edge of Everything, which is her second book, a YA contemporary story. So when a rare and highly endangered bird flies into Lucy's bedroom window, she feels it's a sign. Of what? She's not exactly sure. But maybe it means she'll get her life back on... Start that one again. But maybe it means she'll get her life back on track after the sudden death of her brother a year ago. Maybe she'll find some meaning in the randomness of existence and work out her place in it all. Maybe she'll find a way to stop the wild stunts she's been pulling with Jacinta just to keep her thoughts from spiraling for a few moments. She takes the injured bird to a local wildlife sanctuary and there she meets Ben. He's cute, a tiny bit flirty, and he cares as much about the bird's survival as Lucy does. He could be the distraction she needs. But when unrelated events collide, Lucy realises that things are not going to be that simple. Miranda Luby's second novel is a heartfelt portrayal of grief, a tender romance, and a tribute to a very special Australian bird, a celebration of life in all its randomness and wonder. Just delightful, Miranda.
Thank you for reading that so beautifully.
Oh, even though I stumbled over a little bit, we'll edit that bit out.
That's okay.
So it's a fabulous sort of combination of things. The endangered species, the wildlife, which I know that you love, and you always try and bring sort of your local environment in, and the beautiful sort of YA first time at things. And of course, if it went well or was simple, it would be a really boring book. So I'm sure you've made your protagonists go through a little bit of bits and pieces.
They always have to suffer, unfortunately, but don't we all? That's life, right? And that's how we learn. So, it's a reflection of what it means to be human, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Hence me saying that both of you are really good at bringing the real life into your stories. All right, let's get Holly
Let me
introduced.
tell you all about Holly. So Holly Cardamone is a Melbourne-based author and communications specialist. Her writing has appeared in publications as diverse as bridal tomes and in fashion magazines, in trade publications, and in the large dailies. Her debut novel, Summer in Between, was the 2024 winner of the Hawkeye Publishing Manuscript Development Prize. Holly was a finalist in the Romance Writers of Australia Sweet Treats 2024 anthology and has been a long and shortlisted in a number of national writing awards. She's mother of two, wife to a devilishly handsome Carlton Football Club tragic, and I have to say I have quite a few friends at the moment who will be sitting there being very excited too because they're massive Carlton fans. And slave to the most beautiful boy in the world, Buddy the Australian Shepherd. She's also a voracious reader who's been known to mumble just one more page on more than a handful of occasions.
I love that. Yes.
Welcome
I'm
to the
with you.
podcast, Holly.
Thank you so much.
And where are you? Oh, we've already said where you're coming to us from already, so I'll avoid that. Let me tell you a bit about the amazing Summer in Between. A firecracker bookworm, a Neanderthal surfer, one unforgettable summer. 17-year-old Kat Kelty should be spending her last summer before year 12 buried in books, prepping for the future she's determined to claim. Instead, she's trapped in a house with rowdy brothers, mortifyingly affectionate parents, and a cantankerous nana. And I have to say, having a cantankerous nana, I love that idea. I love grandmas in books. They always just make me smile. Then, to make things worse, Paul G.D. Lightwood, a walking surfer god, king of the Neanderthals, all abs and an infuriatingly disarming smile, shows up to work for her father. Kat's plan is simple: escape this testosterone-fueled town and never look back. But life and Paul have other ideas. Salty hot chips, beach parties, swimming beyond the breakers, Summer in Between is a funny, heartwarming story about first love, family, and finding out where you belong. That's
What a mouthful.
I love it.
Just to clarify one little point there, she does have her grandmother is actually a nonna, and that is
nonna,
all of their own.
Very Australian Italian. That's right. Yes,
it's an important distinction to make.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yes. And Laurie is the queen of putting grandmothers in stories. So, this is good to see. And the salty hot chips on the beach, what is it that we like to have hot chips on the beach when it's summer? It's a crazy thing, but yeah.
I think it's the salt. I know Miranda's a massive hiker and so am I, but the one thing I want after hiking is hot salty chips. So I don't know if it's an electrolyte thing. I'm sure there's some sort of scientific basis behind it.
It also calls every crazy Australian bird to your lap right at the time that you're eating them. So there must be something very Aussie in that.
Definitely, definitely. All right, let's jump into it. Miranda, can I ask you about all those little bits and pieces that we heard of in the blurb? What was the inspiration behind The Edge of Everything?
Well, the original inspiration was actually from my own teenage years. So it starts with quite a sad story. In the book, the protagonist, Lucy, her brother dies very suddenly, and we introduced to her a year later. And when I was young, I had a friend of mine die very suddenly in the same way that Lucy's brother dies. And while I wasn't as close to this person as Lucy is with her brother, as alongside this sort of the normal grief that we would experience of losing someone, I experienced this really sort of existential grief. For me, it was really the first person that I'd lost that wasn't sort of a grandmother or a pet. It was someone my age, and I really hadn't come to terms with the idea that anyone can just die at any time. And that really terrified me and also left me with a lot of big questions that I didn't know how to voice at that age. And when I did sort of try to find some words for them, I did have adults sort of say, "Oh, don't worry, we don't want to ask those questions about the meaning of life." And they weren't rhetorical. I really wanted to know, how do we live in a world where everything can just end tomorrow for us or one of our friends? So that was the inspiration, and then also the plains wanderer, the beautiful bird that we meet at the beginning of the story. That part of the story is inspired by working for Zoos Victoria for a number of years, which is a great not-for-profit conservation organization in Victoria. So those sort of parts of my world came together, and really just, trying to answer a question for myself that I had since I was a teenager, which I didn't have the answer to at the beginning of the book, and just really trying to speak to any teenagers that are having the similar experience that I did at that age, lend them some understanding. I've been there, I've had the same questions as you, and so they could see themselves in Lucy.
Yeah, fantastic.
That's
And what a
good.
great combination. We had someone who's written a book about the Plains Wanderer, and she was an absolute fanatic about this dear little bird that I'd never heard of. And it was the Australian Wilderness Society have a series of book prizes for picture books. And I learned an awful lot about the Plains Wanderer. So, no surprises, even though it's endangered and, quite rare. Have you ever seen one down Lawn Way?
No, I haven't seen one in the wild. They're really difficult to see, even if they were around, because they are often in long grass, and they don't fly much. But I've seen them working at Zoos Victoria. They have a conservation program there, and they had a number of plains wanderers on site there. So I was really lucky to get to see and interact with the birds while I worked there, which is where I fell in love with them. And it was that idea of, I can't believe I've never heard of this bird, this ridiculous looking sort of quail-like thing that sounds like a cow, and and it's got some really beautiful quirks about it, and it is one of those precious animals that a lot of people don't realize how endangered it is. So yeah, I really wanted to showcase that, and the more people that know about this bird, the better, I think.
Fantastic. Just as a kind of aside, during my work, my paid work, we've just started a new leadership program, and the peer groups, I've named them after Australian native birds from Victoria. So,
Right.
but not the plains wanderer. I had to make them short, so we went brolga, kookaburra, magpie, and rosellas. But there you go.
They're all wonderful. All birds deserve the limelight.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, children can have kindergarten groups, so why can't adults have
Absolutely.
have fun mascots as well?
Right.
Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So before we switch over to Holly, grief and the understand that first significant death is such an important time for people to help them really understand, as you say, where they are in the world and how can the world be like this one day and gone tomorrow. And we so often say, "Oh no, don't take the kids to the funeral," or "Don't let them hear you be sad, just pretend it was all fine." And yeah, it's not, I don't think it's the best way to be. I think open, honest, quiet, calm, simple conversations will give kids the answers, and they'll ask questions until they're comfortable.
Yeah, that's right. And I think as well, these sorts of questions, they're not just about grief, they're essentially about uncertainty. And so, I see the book as well as you know, in the context of our world now, which is becoming more and more uncertain, and the future is only going to be more so, it's also a question of how to deal with a world that you just don't know what the future holds tomorrow or next week or next year. Because that's one of our biggest fears, uncertainty. As humans, we don't do very well with it. So these questions aren't going anywhere, you know. So if you don't let the kids, you know, come to the funeral, or you don't answer their question about what's the world going to look like in 20 years, it's just going to be harder and harder to live with all the change that's coming. So yeah, I think these are just really essential questions for teenagers and adults to address as the best that we can.
Yeah, give people advocacy, I think, if is
Mm.
the other thing, you know, the uncertainty is bad enough, but if you then say you've got no control, or it's magic, or it's secret, or it's hidden, then it's, yeah, it's just out of view. Okay. Laurie.
Well, Holly, I was going to say the same question to you. What inspired Summer in between?
I didn't come up with this idea. There wasn't any sort of inciting incident or specific circumstance, but I just had this image float in my mind of a teenager on the beach with a monster textbook, frantically reading on a beautiful summer day, completely oblivious to the group of, you know, ridiculously good-looking surfer boys over here. But was she actually oblivious? And that's where it sort of started. And I really wanted to explore a girl on the brink of womanhood, and that space between where she is now and, in this circumstance, small country town that she doesn't feel she belongs in. She's got all these future dreams that feel like they're just over here, just out of reach. And if she works really, really hard, that's how she's going to get her ticket. But I also wanted someone who's exploring their feminism in a deeply misogynistic setting as well. So, and look, adolescence, you know, it can be such a hellscape, which makes, you know, as a writer, that's where all the good stuff is. And you think about, you know, the frontal lobe and the prefrontal cortex and dopamine and all these things that are happening. It just is this space of firsts, a space of misunderstandings, a space of uh, consequences and not understanding consequences, or being frightened of consequences and not quite knowing, you know, what outcomes are going to be. And that's where I was going with it, just sitting in that space. And, you know, there's some real beauty in teenage girlhood, but there's also some excruciation there, and that feeling of being on the outer. So that's what I wanted to explore.
I love it. I think that's the magic of YA. It's such heightened emotion, but also such heightened drama, where everything is to 110, not to 40, not to 50%, it's 200%.
And it's also such a moment that is so formative. So, you know, we have these experiences that are quite, you know, deeply hurtful and, you know, and excluding, and we have these reactions to them. And then, you know, I'm a mother of teenagers, but when my younger one was in kindergarten, I put my hand up to be parent, you know, liaison volunteer. I organised a lovely morning tea, got to the cafe, had the big table set up. Not a single soul turned up, not a single person. And straight away I was back to that 15-year-old, hearing about this amazing party on the weekend that I hadn't been invited to. And, you know, until my rational brain kicked in, like straight away I internalized that. And, you know, it's that same sort of flush of shame's probably a bit too strong as a word, but it's that feeling of worth. It's your worth questioned. Like, I couldn't get a single person to come and have a coffee with me. And, like, you know, obviously, you know, we're all working mums, we're all busy, so none of it was personal, but for 0.5 of a second I deeply personalized it.
Yep, I hear that.
What is it about YA that makes the, you know, I ask you why have you chosen YA, I guess, as the genre or the filter that you want to tell your story through? So Holly, you sort of jumped in there with, you know, the teenagers, and what is it about that that meant that you could do that exploration of this person on the cusp of womanhood?
Look, I've always loved it as a I don't want to say genre, as a readership, I suppose. Like, you know, when we think about the books that changed our lives, they're often those books when you are 13, 14, 15. So for me, it's The Outsiders. But as an adult, like 28% of readers are over the age of 28. So I was in my, 40s, maybe late 30s, early 40s when I first read the Tomorrow series. And, when people say, what book do you wish you had written? It was that whole series. And I think it's, it is such a minefield of incredible emotions and growth. And with there's so many genres like, romance, we have to have the reader convention of happy ever after or happy for now. Mysteries, crime, we have to have a body or a crime and we have to have a resolution. But with young adult, there's so much room to go with the big topics. Miranda's book changed my life this year. I absolutely loved it. And I sent her a message on Instagram. And, Miranda and I were talking about how, book will reach you at the right time. So if you're in grief and you're not quite sure how to process that, when you see your experience reflected back at you, I'm going to get emotional. It's really, really powerful. And it's just, to be in a position to give a teen that space to process what's going on in their lives and to see themselves on the pages. And for me too, my book's set in a rural space and I really wanted to see rural kids reflected. I want them to see themselves on the page.
Fantastic. Miranda.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful answer, Holly. And I think, the answer is for me similar to that question of people ask, how do you get in the headspace of a teenager when you write? And like you said, Holly, when we're in this moment where no one had turned up to have a coffee with you and you felt it all again. I think those teenage feelings, those big feelings, I don't think they've left us. The teenager that we were is still inside us. And so I think, or you probably have the experience as well of when adults read your book and they're like, oh, I was taken right back to my teenage years. Like we still feel it. And I have to say, I was so lucky to read an advanced copy of Holly's book a month or so ago. And that was the exact feeling I got with this book, like the romance in it, like I can feel it in my body right now, being taken back to this like handsome boy and all the drama that's involved, the beach, the chips, like it's such a visceral novel. And the experience of reading it, you forget, you become ageless, right? Straight away. Like I'm no longer a 37-year-old, you're straight back in your teenage years and being transported in that way. It's a gift and it's so powerful. And when you, Laurie, reading the blurb of Holly's novel, like I got goosebumps being taken back to the characters again. So that, I mean, it's, and so that time of life that's filled with so many emotions, even when they're difficult emotions, I think that's just the essence of being human, right? And sometimes when we adults, we sort of try and shove those emotions away, but they're always there under the surface, and it really connects us back to what it means to be human and asking these big questions and having these big feelings, and having them validated as well.
Yeah. Well, speaking of YA, so with both of you both write the quiet YA, so there's no world explosions, there's no aliens attacking, there's no life is on the line. No, well,
with aliens. Come on, Laurie.
I love a good alien story, that.
I wish I could write a good alien, but it's really not my forte.
So how do you both go about plotting that quiet YA? What are you pitching your big moment, your big ending, all those moments as you're plotting out? Because I know, speaking from experience, it's all about the final fight scene for me. It's all about that action moment. So how do you go about? Do you want to start, Miranda?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, I think this is so personal. For me, I try to plot and then of course it all falls apart. And so I wouldn't say that I have come up with a plot, but for both of my books, I just had a big question that I wanted to answer that I didn't have the answer to. And those were the climactic moments, and so for The Edge of Everything, it's how do we live in a world where you or someone can just die tomorrow, and how do we find meaning? And so obviously, you can't just have a protagonist sitting there and wondering and asking that question. So finding a scene that fits that dramatic question and having a way for it to play out that's very tangible is obviously, for those quiet novels, that's where you have to, find the the pacing that works for YA and that sort of plot, and so whatever it is, there's a car breaking down, or there's some drama with the parents and all that sort of thing. So yeah, but I think for me it develops quite organically as I'm writing as well. So I absolutely didn't know the ending of either of my books. And my first novel, the ending completely changed once I was working on it with the editor, fabulous Jane Pearson at Text Publishing. So yeah, I wouldn't say you don't know, you're just sort of writing towards a feeling sometimes, a question, and hoping that plays out in a dramatic enough way for it to be, interesting for teenagers, I guess.
Holly?
Yeah, it's such a great question. So I am a plotter. Like, I live with these like within reach. But I also allow myself space to veer. So like I like to sit down and have a rough idea what I'm actually doing today. For me, it is about having someone in a bit of a state and having them get over that. And it's a character growth, and the big fight scene at the end is the realizing you don't really actually know what the hell you're doing, but you're not supposed to. So it's those sort of questions, like that real seeing yourself reflected back at you and not liking what you're seeing, and how you're going to change that and how you're going to approach that, and putting the person in a situation where they're really having to confront their own values and define their values. There's, they're young people, they are still feeling their way into what their values actually are, and it might be a gut feel for them, or it might be something, quite black and white, or yeah, that's how I approach it. My endings changed too, in the 50 gazillion drafts that I did. And one of the endings that I had, I actually didn't want to put my character through that. So I handed it back. It was an experience that's valid, but I just couldn't do it to her. And so I got rid of that one, and something slightly less horrific. Yeah, slightly. So that's where I approach it. But I do like my index cards. I do like to have a little know where I'm going with this. And I also I like the dopamine of having this big stack of things. This is all the stuff's going to happen. This is what I'm writing, and watching that pile grow as I'm finishing, flicking them that way. And I'm a sucker for checklists too, ladies. I've got word count trackers. I set goals according to whatever it is that I want to get done in a week or a month. And yeah, I get that real buzz from, gold star girl.
Oh, that is lovely. I must admit, I'm a bit of a checklist person at work, but not at home. Writing, it just is, yeah, very much was that coming out onto the page? Where did that come from? Yeah. So there you go. And then, of course, 96,000 editing drafts to fix up that first draft, but such is life. Let's think about YA. So many people read YA. Young adults, teenagers, all the way up to much older people with grey hair. Do you write for a particular segment of that audience? Do you write for that mindset, or do you write for yourself? Miranda?
I definitely write for myself first and foremost. I mean, as what I've touched on before is the experiences that my protagonists go through in my books are quite autobiographical, and they're often trying to answer questions that I have myself about my own world that I haven't figured out from my teenage years. So it really is an experiment, an intellectual experiment for me. That's why I love to write. And if I start a book and it doesn't interest me in that way of answering a question for myself, then I know I probably won't end up finishing it. So yeah, and that really helps me because I've written other books that haven't been published or I haven't pitched yet, and I don't think there's a single wasted moment in that time because I was writing to get to know myself better. So I always feel if I'm writing something that if you told me this will never get published, would I keep writing it anyway? And the answer so far has been yes for what I've written, because I have a burning desire to figure out something about my mind and the way it works. So yeah, I find that really rewarding, and it also just really helps with that self-doubt and that pressure, because look, I'm going to do it anyway. This is important to me anyway, so I may as well just keep writing it. And then often it's the case that the place that comes from means you've written something that's probably going to connect with people, so it sort of works out. So yeah, of course, you do have to sort of have an audience in mind, but maybe that comes more in the editing process for me a bit. But certainly, yeah, the original idea is me trying to figure out something that I want to know.
Yeah, I really love that, getting to know yourself more. Yeah, beautiful. Holly.
It's such an interesting question. So when I first started this novel, I started it many moons ago. Like, I had one child in primary school, the other one was in kinder. I wrote it on literally a notepad next to the bloody trampoline. And then inside at night I'd come in and I'd work on it. And I adolescence then, mine as well as my children's, was a long, long way away. And I just had this image in my head of this protagonist, and I didn't really consider genre or marketing or anything like that until I got the other end of it. I just felt this story pouring out of me. And even now, I think if I thought too much about who's actually reading this, I'll be paralyzed by it. But on the flip side of that, like, as I'm writing like different scenes, I just think, oh, I have someone in my head thinking, I know that they'll really love this bit, and and I writing for that. And for me, a lot of my writing is looking for it's going for the deeper issues, but also with a laugh as well. And particularly like the scenes with nonna, like anyone. I don't even think you have to be Italian. All of us know someone who, like an older figure, no matter what you say to them, you're never ever going to be right. So there's no point arguing with them. And it's just this butting of heads. And that cracked me up. I'd be sitting there just cackling away to myself with what this character's putting her grandmother through. And I did the same with mine, like many, many ways. Like my mum and dad are reading it at the moment, and it's hilarious because straight away my dad rang and said, you're lucky your grandmother's with God now, because she wouldn't be impressed with this portrayal. It's not her. And he said it's her. And it's like, so yeah, so in terms of who am I writing for, I think it's for myself first, to tell myself this story, to see if I'm loving it, to see if I'm laughing, to see if I'm sitting there, that when that lump in your throat when something is happening, if I'm feeling it, then I know that then I can believe in it myself. And I think that might be the first part of it.
I love that. Well, so this is you've written many things. Let me put it this way, with both of you, you're such experienced writers with both of your diverse careers, and I'm just wondering, what is the differences do you find having to do that mindset change of here's fiction, here's YA fiction, compared to the business writing or the travel guides and all the different types of work that you both put together, plus the shorter form to your longer form. So what have you learnt for yourselves with the differences between the styles of writing that fiction brings to you? Holly, do you want to keep going?
Sure. So Veronica sent me that question about when did you call yourself a writer? And my answer is like, any day now, any minute. But it's funny, and as soon as I answered it, and then I went away and thought about it, and it's one of those really strange conundrums in my own head. I have written professionally now for 25 years. Like, people have paid me to write. And 2019, I wrote a business book, and I had this manuscript. I had it, bound at Officeworks. I handed it to my mum, and she looked at it, and she read the title, and it's Tell Your Story and Grow Your Brand. And she just went, oh. And I looked at it, and she goes, darling, I know it's not the book you want to write. And it was absolutely true. So in terms of that difference between fiction, one of my biggest, I don't really like to use the word regrets, but one of my regrets is I haven't always prioritized my fiction writing. And that's because I'm also a mum. I have a business,
You've got to eat.
Yeah, and I like my Nikes, you know. So like this is a leap of faith. Writing
Yeah.
fiction is a leap of faith. Like, yes, I might be sitting here laughing and cracking up. Doesn't mean any editor or publisher is going to necessarily as well. So in terms of differences for me, it goes back to being a organized control freak. So I live and die by my asana. So if I'm working on something nonfiction, I find that it's really hard for me to flick my brain back into something that's not. But I also make sure I start every single working day on something fictional because I can jump out. It's easy for me to switch back from that brain rather than the other one.
Interesting. Okay. Miranda?
Yes, switching between the two is tricky. I'm always fiction in the morning as well.
Wow.
And yes, I think all writing really complements each other. I think I become a better fiction writer when I do copywriting for a, law firm, surprisingly, and vice versa. So when I write an annual report, even if it's for, like a law firm or something, that teaches me to be really succinct with words, which is obviously something really helpful for fiction when you can start to get really flowery with your language and you have to pull it back. And of course, fiction teaches you that it's all about connection and heart, which is also so important for, right, copy for advertising, copy for a billboard. Of course, how can you connect with the person driving by in the least amount of words possible and really like have an emotional connection or, and so I think it all really complements each other. And so switching between can be tricky, but it also, I take something from what I've just been doing and I find it influences that next piece of work, especially when you get feedback from all these different areas, just essentially what connects, what works for people, what words are resonating. And I think, again, it goes back to just humans connecting to other humans. That's in every single piece of writing. That's all we're trying to do. So yeah, I love having that diversity in my work. I think it definitely makes me a better writer.
I really like the way sometimes then our fiction writing creeps back into that technical writing and softens it, and we can actually bring a little humor or a little gentle creativity to what could be a fairly dry piece of, medical research or whatever you happen to be writing. And I find sometimes I've got to stop putting the contractions in and make it not like dialogue. I have to be just a little bit more formal. Okay, no, this is where we are today. Yeah, anyway, it's all good, and it doesn't hurt technical writing to be a little less forced. I'm just amazed at people such as yourself, Miranda and Holly, who can take what is a very dense piece of writing and find the core message and just throw it out in 2 or 3 sentences. Yes, that's what I was trying to say. We've got a fabulous comms manager at work, and I think, how did they do that? And I know it's practice, but some people's brains, I think, can find that and shape the words well. And obviously, you both have that gene. I'm going to say it's genetic, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Don't you reckon, Laurie? Yeah.
I absolutely do. I wish I had that gene.
Yes. All
Well,
right.
I have a musical bone in my body, so it's all very genetic, I think.
Indeed. All right. I'm going to ask you a little bit about your writing routine. Now, you've both said fiction in the morning. Are you super early writers? Are you early birds? Are you coffee and tea drinkers? Do you need to do yoga first? Tell us a little bit about Miranda's morning routine.
Yeah, so I'm straight. Especially, the more challenging I'm finding the writing, or when I'm in a bit of a space where I know that self-doubt's going to creep in, the earlier the better for me. Straight out in my pajamas still, it can still be dark. It can be 5:30. Might make a tea, but if I can just start getting words down, as soon as it starts flowing, then the fear starts to subside, and I'm still in sort of that dream space, so that I don't have that critical mind, especially things like haven't been on social media yet, haven't seen, this person with 5 novels has been shortlisted for this. Like, you say in your brain, no, hey, I won't let that creep, but it does creep in, and then you're sitting there thinking, one day when my novel's published. And so just if you can almost not even be in your own head at all, which is when you're asleep, you don't even exist. So that's and I know lots of writers feel that way. So editing and that sort of thing I can do in the afternoon, but for me, the first draft is by far the most daunting, by far the most challenging, and it's the most likely spot for me to give up and throw my computer against the wall. So that is essential to be in the morning if possible. And then, before, like, before 9 o'clock, before you start getting emails for work, that just distracts you from, for the rest of the day. So yeah, that's my routine.
Yep. Yep. I hear that. You're right there, Veronica.
Holly.
Yes.
So I would love to be a morning person, and I was a morning person for years upon years upon years. Perimenopause meant that I was wide awake at 4 o'clock in the morning and then going to sleep at 5. So that stopped. That made getting up at 6 not as much fun. So I do have a kind of routine. I don't tend to work until I have offspring out of my space. And what that means is I drop off one to school, I go and do a run or lift some heavy stuff, and then I come back to my desk and eat something, and that's when I sit down. This is my focused time. And as I said before, I like setting goals. I like to know where I'm going. I like my plans. When I'm in the first draft mode, I literally go for word count goals. I just try and bang it out. My first drafts are really ugly things where if I'm in the middle of something, I just literally put on caps lock, Holly, this sounds awful, fix this, caps lock off, keep going. I try not to question myself too much there. I outline a fair bit, and what I do love doing is like making a playlist, because I'm a massive procrastinator. I love procrastinating, and there's nothing like making a playlist for that. And so if I've got that playlist on, if I sit down, if I've done a little bit of a quick scribble about this is what the hell I'm actually doing today, and then off I go. In terms of, I've got it off, but my Apple Watch makes sure I get off my bum every hour or so. A client once told me that her trick for staying hydrated and getting incidental movement in, never ever keep your water on your desk. Always keep it somewhere else. So you actually have to get up, go there, have a drink, and then come back. And I really, really like that, because otherwise I could be sitting for hours. And we know that's a bit of an epidemic as well. So yeah, I work basically between the hours of 10 and 3. 2 o'clock, my brain's mush usually. And by then I think I also know that I'm going to have to stop to go to a tram stop to pick up a child that's really appreciative too. Yeah, so that's my routine.
So speaking of playlists, because I want to go into that. So why, and I'll ask both of you. So do you have a Pinterest board? Do you have, what are your emotional triggers? So do you use your playlist as an emotional trigger for writing? Holly, do you want to keep going?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And it's like the castle, it's the vibe of the thing. Like that's what I sort of create. What sort of feel am I looking for? And then I find stuff. Because I am 420 years old, like I said, my adolescence is a long way away. I have playlists that I'll never ever make public, because it's literally from the time I was 15 and 16, and basically the soundtrack to every surf movie that was around then. So they're the sort of vibes that I use to get in. I do Pinterest boards more for settings, and how many ways can you describe the beach? And because I'm here in Melbourne, like my home is 90 minutes that way, southeast, towards on Bunurong land actually. So but I can't get there all the time because of, again, the aforementioned children. So when I'm there, I'm sitting there, I'm taking 50 million photos, I'm immersing myself in this scene, I'm eavesdropping like a creep at the local hangouts and things like that. But I find that the Pinterest boards also help me get those vibes as well.
Yep.
And if I'm feeling stuck, I'll literally jump on, have a look, and that's enough to give me that bit of a trigger.
Miranda, do you have a board?
I actually don't have any of this. What thing I find hardest writing fiction is the descriptive passages, the setting. For me, it's all about ideas first. And if my first drafts are really sort of abstract and esoteric, and they don't have enough grounding in them, and I actually have to go back and be like, okay, I should probably put a setting in here, and I should probably describe like,
where are they?
Yeah. And so because that's not what inspires my work, I do find that part hard. I have to sort of come in later and think, okay, maybe it needs a description of a beach, and maybe I can find some images, and actually have to actively work at that. So yeah, I don't, and so I wouldn't, yeah, it's not where I look at a Pinterest board or even listen to music and it gets me in the headspace of the novel. It's really for me about coming back to those ideas. And so maybe I'm more likely to have a notebook with key questions, or these are the key ideas and questions I'm trying to answer in the novel. These are the big, existential concepts that I want to, and which of course then that's no fun in a YA novel, and you probably need to add like an attractive boy and a beach. So yeah, I think it would probably help my writing if I did have that, grounding from the beginning. But it doesn't. I sort of have tried to do it before, and then I've got a bit bored with it. So yeah, I don't come at it from that angle. So it's interesting to hear because everyone starts in such a different space, and we all end up with something similar. I mean, I do have settings and descriptions, but that part is harder for me.
Yeah, it's fascinating how, isn't it, Laurie? We talk to
really
so
is.
many authors, and everybody has an absolutely unique way of putting their stories together.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think that's the
fantastic.
best part of being writers is that everyone's got a different journey and everyone comes at it from a different mindset, headspace, whatever it might be. And it just shows how unique non-AI writing is. But I'll try not to get on my soapbox tonight.
No, don't do that. There's more coming out about that. Let's look at what advice, given you are both now experienced, published, you've emerged as authors. Let's just say that you're out there. What advice would you have for your younger self? And given that you both write in YA, what would you say to teenage Miranda and Holly? In rightly advice, go. Yeah.
Mine is back yourself.
Mm.
Back yourself. Have a go. And also I think too, your story is really, really important. I think that's something that wasn't when we think about what books we're taught at school or what books, and I loved English, I loved literature. A lot of it wasn't relatable in any way, shape, or form. And there's nothing like reading the classics to really question your own worth as a writer and question your own skills. And when you've deconstructed novels and things like that. And I think that's why I always loved The Outsiders, because it was such a relatable story. It was, except for, the death by suicide by cop and all those other little bits and pieces in it that probably aren't that relatable. But it was a small town. It was these people here, they hated each other and they clashed. And I think when we think about the advice that we give to younger people, like, look, we always say write what you know, but what you know is really, really valid and really important and universal as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Miranda.
Well, what I tell teenagers when I go into schools, often, that I'm speaking to a big group of year 9 students, and only some of them are interested in writing and reading, right? But I say, even if you're not a writer, the fact is that we're all storytellers, we're narrative beings, and how we make sense of the world is through a story. And it wasn't until later in my life, and I wish I'd known earlier, how important the story that we tell ourselves about our own life is. So even if you never write a word, or even if you're not interested in reading, you're constantly telling yourself a story about, this is who I am, this is how my life's going, this is the framing of my entire world. And we do it without realizing I'm not good enough, and if only this, and this is no good, and and we often don't realize that as teenagers, that we have complete control over that narrative and we can change it at any time. And I think that's really important. I was never told that when I was young. You have the power, these are just thoughts, you control them. And so learning to tell a story, even if you don't want to be a writer, to tell yourself a good story about your own life is so important. And that's completely changed my life. And that's the journey that both of my protagonists go through as well, is learning to change the narrative that they, how they frame their own world. So yeah, that's something that I wish I'd known when I was younger, but it's never too late to learn.
It's never. And if you are spreading that message in schools, that is just so inspiring, Miranda.
Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
that reframing the negative voice into a more positive one, which we just neglect to do all the time. And it's so easy and so quick to go to the negative, but to reframe that and that is incredible for speaking to young people and in both of your books. So that's just absolutely fantastic. So, okay, as authors, we've got a lot of listeners who are writing their first novel, who are writing their dream novel, the baby they want to bring out into the world. What advice are you giving writers with your journey?
Oh, in terms of something practical, one thing I find that works really, really well for me, and I sort of alluded to this earlier, I always outline by hand. And one thing I find is that if I'm stuck, if I feel like I'm not getting anywhere on the keyboard, I'll grab pen and paper and it flows. And same thing, if I'm sitting here and I'm scribbling and I'm not getting anywhere, I'll start mucking around on the keyboard and the same thing. I think it's that change of medium, that's the right word, change of tool will unlock things for me. And we talk about writer's block and things like that. If second I feel stuck, I either pick up a pen or I pick up the keyboard, whatever I'm doing, and that's enough to get me moving.
That's good advice.
Well, that's such great advice, and I love how practical that is, because I'm not going practical at all. But yeah, my advice is to write what is in your heart, write what you truly care about, write what you're really interested in, because we can't know, even authors who have a few books published, if it's going to be published or how it's going to be received. And so if you're not writing for yourself and your own interests, whatever weird little niche thing, whatever bird you want to put in, whatever question you need answered, it's going to help you if you come up with some challenges later on where it's difficult to get it published. That you've written something that's important to you. You can hold on to that. And I think, that's key when you're writing, and even later if it's published, and you're getting some feedback, other people don't agree with something or they don't like it, but you've written what's in your heart. And I just think that really helps. You've written it for the right reasons. And at the end of the day, you can just be happy no matter what happens with it or how it's received.
I love that. That's good advice.
Definitely good advice, for sure. All right, where can people find you online? Now, you've mentioned your Pinterest board, Holly, but tell us.
That is locked. That's locked right down. No one's taken a
No
peek.
one's there. Fair enough. So people are looking for Holly online. Where do they search? Where do they find
my website is hollycardamone.com.au. Instagram, I'm Holly Cardamone Author. I am on TikTok, God help us all, and same thing, Holly Cardamone Author.
Fantastic. I need to know more about TikTok. Tell me how hard, easy. I've had a couple of goes at it and I just can't do it. Well, no, I haven't committed to it, I guess. I just find that it's too much.
It's it's powerful for this audience of young people, and I'm sure they love watching a 52-year-old woman make a goose of themselves. I have my 18-year-old helping me with it, and my publisher's amazing. So my publisher and my 18-year-old, they tell me when the cringe factor is here and I need to go.
Excellent.
I'm blushing. I can feel it.
Very good. Miranda, where can people find you online?
Well, I'm not on TikTok. Yes, I've managed to avoid that, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't want to know, to be honest, but definitely love Instagram at Miranda Luby, and my website, mirandaluby.com.au. And on Facebook as well, but Instagram's my main addiction online.
Go on, Laurie?
No, you go.
Final thoughts. What do you say, what would you say to readers who are looking for a book? Why would they pick up The Edge of Everything? Let's go with that.
The response I've had to this book has been really overwhelmingly beautiful. The main thing has been people who have lost someone, whether when they were young or when they were more recently, when they're older, who feel that their experience has been reflected in the book, and it's been very cathartic for them, and it was very cathartic for me to write. So that's so beautiful if I can have any impact at all on someone's grief journey. But also just living in a world that's so uncertain and knowing how to survive that for your children or for yourself. So yeah, anyone with big questions about life and meaning. But I should say that it's also a funny book. There's also humor. It's not too depressing because, even when we're in these throes of grief, I think one minute we're thinking what's the meaning of life? And the next minute you're like, that sandwich looks delicious. That's how our brains work, right? So there's humor and lightness in it too. So it's not too heavy. And yeah, if it can be of help to anyone at all, that means a lot to me.
Cool. Holly?
So one thing that was really important to me in writing this book was to create a respectful romantic relationship that's basically full of green flags in an environment that's my character's surrounded by toxic masculinity. So I really wanted her to have a relationship that's it's beautiful and it's and enviable and what we all want for a summer relationship. And I think if someone wants to read something that I suppose it's relatable and honest, that they're seeing themselves or, what's envied from afar, that sort of experience of a quintessential Aussie summer. I had a reader reach out to me last week and said, I really loved what you wrote. I could just see that toilet block at Sorrento. And I was like, well, that's great. I've never been there to that toilet block, so it's not that one. But it was, we all have this vision of an Aussie summer. So, and it's something that just, if you're a teen or even if you're not, when you want that nostalgia of summer and what could be, that's what I wanted for this story.
Beautiful.
That's about it. We're out of time and everybody's dinner's waiting. So your dessert, whatever that might be. So when we finish up, we'd like to, if we can, remind our readers to read more Aussie books. So could we ask you to say that with us?
Try and
So
stop
remember to
Read more Aussie books.
Fantastic. So Holly Cardamone and Miranda Luby, two fabulous YA authors, and my fabulous co-host Laurie Bell. Thank you for a very pleasant discussion tonight, and good luck with your sales. I hope they fly off the shelves.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Let's meet again, where magic happens.